Jehovah's Witness leadership just leaked, and inside it is a massive change to one of their most dangerous teachings. Not only does this change make them directly responsible for people losing their lives, but it completely contradicts what they previously taught. I'm talking about the Jehovah's Witness blood doctrine. And if this leak is genuine, which seems likely, then it's huge. First, I want to give credit where credit is due. This news first came from a Reddit poster named Larchwood, who apparently has a track record of accurate leaks. I'll put the post up on the screen so you can see it for yourself, and I'll put the link to it in the description. According to the leak, Garrett Loesch will deliver the governing body update. And here's the key part of the announcement. After much prayer and consideration of the scriptures, the governing body has decided to clarify our position on the use of a patient's own blood in medical and surgical care. The clarification is this. Each Christian must decide for himself how his own blood will be used in all medical and surgical care. This includes whether to allow his own blood to be removed, stored, and then given back to him. So basically, Jehovah's Witnesses are now allowed to get blood transfusions. They just have to be their own donor. Because they're now allowed to store their own blood in advance and have it transfused back into their body. And I can't stress enough how big of a deal this is. For starters, it adds to the blood guilt that's already on the governing body's head, because witnesses were told explicitly that they were not allowed to do this. It was never presented as a personal choice. It was presented as obedience to God, which means witnesses refused this procedure because they believed they had no other choice. And it makes this next part even more frustrating. Loesch mentions in the update that regarding the use of one's own blood, our position has been as is stated in the October 15th, 2000 issue of the Watchtower. There it says, a Christian must decide for himself how his own blood will be handled in the course of a surgical procedure, medical test, or current therapy. But here's what he's not saying. He's specifically leaving out a pretty major part of that Watchtower article, where they also said, occasionally a doctor will urge a patient to deposit his own blood weeks before surgery, preoperative autologous blood donation, or PAD, so that if the need arises, he could transfuse the patient with his own stored blood. However, such collecting, storing, and transfusing of blood directly contradicts what is said in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Blood is not to be stored. It is to be poured out, returned to God, as it were. Granted, the Mosaic Law is not enforced now. Nevertheless, Jehovah's Witnesses respect the principles God included in it, and they are determined to abstain from blood. Hence, we do not donate blood, nor do we store for transfusion our blood that should be poured out. That practice conflicts with God's law. And another Watchtower publication from a few years earlier echoes that. It says, the Bible clearly rules out the common use of autologous blood, preoperative collection, storage, and later infusion of a patient's own blood. Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept this procedure. We have long appreciated that such stored blood certainly is no longer part of the person. It has been completely removed from him, so it should be disposed of in line with God's law. You can't get much clearer than that. It wasn't ambiguous, and there's no gray area. It was clearly taught that this procedure violated God's law. Jehovah's Witnesses were forbidden from storing and transfusing their own blood. That means that any witness who was in the hospital and consulting with a member of the JW Hospital Liaison Committee, or HLC, would have been told not to accept this procedure. If they did, and it became public knowledge, then they would have been disfellowshipped. And remember, it's estimated that about 1,000 witnesses die every year as a result of refusing blood transfusions. So witnesses have died as a result of this rule. Now, the governing body is lifting the ban and saying that each witness gets to choose for themselves. So what changed? God's law or their interpretation of it? They're not apologizing, and they never will.
We are not embarrassed about adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously.
And listen, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, I could give you one reason after another why this organization is dangerous and why you should leave it. But just take this update alone, and I have to ask, what else do you need? Because the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses claims to be directed by God's Holy Spirit, but they taught that this procedure violates God's law. They cost people their lives for nothing, because now they say it's up to each Christian to decide for themselves. So again, what else do you need to prove to yourself that the governing body is not being directed by God? Because witnesses trusted them on this doctrine, and some died refusing this procedure. So how about you? Are you going to trust them with your life? With your family's lives? I'm begging you not to. And at the very least, please give this some serious thought. And if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, or you were one, please share this with as many witnesses as you can. Because when these kinds of updates happen, it just reminds me that we can't just sit on our hands and say, to each their own. No, It's dangerous to be a Jehovah's Witness, and if we have loved ones inside that organization, we should do our best to get them out of it before the governing body costs them their lives. As always, thanks for watching, and God bless.